What if I told you that every time you get angry, anxious, or desperate to prove yourself, someone else quietly takes control of you? They read your reactions, twist your emotions, and turn your energy into their weapon. You think you're fighting back, but in truth, you're being played. The world doesn't control you through chains or cages anymore. It controls you through your feelings. And that's exactly why Machiavelli said, "The one who masters emotion, masters power." In this video, you're about to see how emotional control, or the lack of it, decides who dominates and who obeys. We'll break down what it truly means to become emotionally dangerous. Not violent, not cold, but powerful. Because you can't be shaken, provoked, or read. You'll see how the most influential leaders in history use this same invisible armor, from Machiavelli's cunning insights in The Prince to the silent composure of modern strategists. The same rule repeats through time. If others can't predict your emotions, they can't control your decisions. Think about it. When someone insults you, they want a reaction. When they provoke jealousy, fear, or guilt, they want to see how you break. The world is full of people testing your emotions to find your weaknesses. But Machiavelli's philosophy flips the game. He believed that emotions are tools to be used, not suffered. The one who stays calm when chaos rises gains a terrifying advantage. Because calmness is not passivity, it's strategy. In a moment, we'll explore why people who can't be manipulated emotionally become naturally powerful. You'll learn why showing too much empathy or vulnerability, when misused, makes you easy to control. You'll discover how rulers, CEOs, and even ordinary individuals use emotional silence as a weapon. There's a reason the most feared personalities in history were often the most unreadable. Their emotions were sealed, and their intentions hidden behind composure. That mystery made them dangerous. But here's the part few people know. Machiavelli never truly preached cruelty. He taught precision. He believed that emotion, when guided by reason, becomes a blade. But emotion without control, that's chaos. And chaos always gets ruled. He warned that compassion at the wrong time can destroy you. Yet when used strategically, it can conquer entire empires. This balance between feeling and control is what separates the weak from the untouchable. So as you watch this video, ask yourself one thing. Who really owns your emotions right now? Is it you, or the people who know exactly how to trigger you? Because until you master that inner battlefield, your power will always belong to someone else. Stay with me until the end, because we're not just going to talk about emotional control. We're going to uncover the Machiavellian techniques that make you emotionally dangerous. You'll learn the small habits that make others stop trying to manipulate you. You'll understand the psychology behind silence, unpredictability, and calm dominance. And you'll see how to build that rare aura of power, where nobody dares to test your limits, because your emotions no longer belong to them. This isn't just philosophy. It's survival. In a world where outrage and emotion rule every conversation, the person who remains centered is the person who wins. So if you've ever been called too calm, too quiet, too detached, good. You're already halfway there, because silence is a weapon, and composure is control. Welcome to Psych Algorithm. If you're ready to learn the hidden power of emotional danger, the kind Machiavelli hinted at centuries ago, then stay till the end. It might just change the way you power, control, and yourself. Don't forget to subscribe, because this is where we decode the minds of history's most strategic thinkers, and teach you how to use their wisdom to become unstoppable. Before we talk about the art of being emotionally dangerous, we have to destroy one illusion first. Most people hear that word dangerous, and immediately think of aggression, violence, or cruelty. They imagine the ruthless tyrant, the loud, dominant figure, who controls others through fear. But Machiavelli never praised mindless aggression. His version of danger was much colder, quieter, and infinitely more effective. To him, real danger begins inside, in the mind that cannot be shaken, the heart that does not react on command, and the face that reveals nothing. Being emotionally dangerous doesn't mean you are heartless. It means you are not ruled by your heart. It's the ability to stand in a storm and feel everything, yet remain unmoved. It's when one insults you, and instead of reacting, you simply observe. It's when people try to trigger you, but they can't find a button to press. That is emotional danger, not in the form of destruction, but in the form of mastery. When others lose control, you stay still. When they get louder, you get calmer. That calmness makes people nervous, because they can't read you. And when they can't read you, they can't manipulate you. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. In The Prince, he observed that rulers who survived chaos were not the strongest or the kindest. They were the ones who kept their emotions hidden. He wrote that a wise ruler should never reveal his full intent. The reason was simple. Emotion is information. Once others know what angers you, what scares you, what excites you, they have the map to control you. To be emotionally dangerous means burning that map. No one gets to know your inner weather. Think of it this way. The emotionally dangerous person is like still water. You can't tell how deep it goes. It looks calm on the surface, but beneath that calmness lies immense strength. People who are emotionally unstable are like waves. They move wildly with every gust of wind, but the dangerous one, they remain composed. Their silence, their stillness becomes a threat, because no one knows what's coming next, and that unpredictability is the key. When your emotions are balanced, others can't calculate your next move. They can't use guilt, anger, or praise to steer you. They can't get inside your. The moment you stop being reactive, you stop being readable, and the moment you stop being readable, you become powerful. Emotional danger is not about scaring others. It's about being impossible to manipulate. But here's the twist most people miss. Being emotionally dangerous doesn't mean you don't feel. You still experience anger, love, and pain. You just don't broadcast it. You don't act from impulse. You act from intention. You process emotions like a strategist, not a victim. If someone tries to make you jealous, you study the attempt. If someone tries to make you angry, you see it as data. That mindset of watching rather than reacting is what Machiavelli called the armor of reason. Once you wear it, emotional attacks stop hurting you. This is why emotionally dangerous people often seem mysterious. They don't overshare. They don't chase validation. They listen more than they speak. Their silence is not weakness, it's calculation. When others are loud with their emotions, the dangerous one observes patterns. They can see motives hidden behind every word, every smile. They understand what others want, and they never give it away. To be emotionally dangerous is to hold your power inwards. It's to make others question themselves while you remain grounded. It's a form of quiet dominance that doesn't need force to command respect. People sense it. They can feel it in your presence, even if you never raise your voice. Because power, at its highest level, doesn't need to announce itself. It simply exists. That's the essence of Machiavelli's danger. Mastery without noise. Emotion without weakness. Calmness that unsettles those who live in chaos. Before we talk about why most people are controlled, we have to face an uncomfortable truth. The world doesn't conquer us through strength, wealth, or power. It conquers us through emotion. It makes us anxious, jealous, insecure, or afraid. And then it quietly takes control while we're busy reacting. Every time we respond in haste, every time we let emotion override reason, we hand someone else the remote to our mind. And most people don't even realize it's happening. The truth is simple, but brutal. The easiest person to control is the one who cannot control themselves. When someone can trigger you, they own you. They don't have to touch you, shout at you, even command you. They just have to press the right button. And when that button works, you're no longer acting, you're reacting. You become predictable. You become readable. You become a tool in someone else's plan. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He warned that emotion exposes you. When you display fear, your enemies sense blood. When you show anger, they see the limits of your patience. When you show love too easily, they measure how far they can push you. Every visible emotion gives away a piece of your internal map, your triggers, your thresholds, your desires. Once that map is exposed, others no longer have to fight you directly. They simply guide your emotions, and you do the rest yourself. This is why most people are controlled without force. They're controlled through subtle emotional pressure. A partner provokes guilt. A boss provokes fear. A rival provokes envy. A friend provokes pity. Each emotion is a lever. The more reactive you are, the easier it is to pull those levers. People think manipulation requires words, but it rarely does. It only requires that you feel something strongly enough to stop thinking clearly. Once your emotion takes over, your logic disappears, and someone else begins writing your script. The core principle Machiavelli hinted at was simple: silence the reaction, control the game. In every social battle, the first one to lose composure loses control. The one who reacts first gives away the upper hand. The one who stays silent, calm, and unreadable maintains power. When you don't react, you create uncertainty. The other person doesn't know whether they've won or lost. That uncertainty eats away at them, and in that space of confusion, you regain control. When you show pain, you invite dominance. When you show anger, you reveal vulnerability. When you show fear, you give permission to be intimidated. That's why emotional control isn't about being numb. It's about being strategic. The person who can pause in the heat of provocation owns the moment. Most people act instantly, driven by the rush of emotion. But the emotionally dangerous person waits. They observe. They decide when and how to respond. Their calmness isn't weakness. It's a weapon. Emotion clouds judgment. When the mind burns with anger or anxiety, perception bends. You see threats where there are none. You make decisions to relieve the feeling, not to solve the problem. And that's where control slips away. People who know how to manipulate understand this deeply. They know you'll say things you regret when angry. They know you'll agree to things you shouldn't when afraid. They know you'll chase validation when insecure. They rely on your emotional blindness. When you lose control of your emotions, you stop seeing the game, you become the game. And that's why most people remain trapped in cycles of control. They repeat the same emotional patterns. They get provoked the same way. They argue, react, apologize, and repeat. They never pause long enough to realize that their reactions are predictable. Scripts, rehearsed by the people who provoke them. Now, the ones who can't be controlled move differently. They set boundaries and enforce them without guilt. They understand that every no builds strength. They refuse to explain themselves when someone violates those boundaries. They don't need to shout to prove a point. They act decisively, calmly, and consistently. That consistency unnerves manipulators. When they see that emotional bait no longer works, they retreat. These people don't give away their emotional map. You can't read what bothers them. You can't guess what excites or frustrates them. Their reactions are minimal, deliberate, and calculated. They use their emotions as tools, not weapons. When anger arises, they channel it into focus. When fear appears, they study it. When love surfaces, they express it wisely. They never allow an emotion to drive the car. They let it sit in the passenger seat, where it belongs. But most people are different. They wear their emotions like bright flags, signaling their state to everyone around them. You can tell when they're hurt, jealous, afraid, or desperate. They post it, speak it, show it. They believe expressing every feeling is authenticity, but there's a difference between authenticity and exposure. Machiavelli would say that true authenticity is the ability to feel deeply while appearing composed. The world rewards composure, not chaos. When someone tries to control you emotionally, they rarely come at you directly. They use small manipulations, gaslighting, guilt, confusion, inconsistency. They act warm, then cold. They apologize, then provoke again. They praise you, then criticize you. The goal isn't to hurt you. It's to unbalance you. Once you're emotionally off balance, you start chasing their approval. You start explaining yourself. You start proving your worth. And without realizing it, you start dancing to their rhythm. This is emotional control in its purest form. The art of pulling invisible strings. The manipulator doesn't have to raise their voice or issue commands. They simply guide your feelings. You do the rest. You argue, cry, explain, chase. You waste your energy reacting while they sit in silence, observing the chaos they created. That's why emotional unpredictability is power. When you're calm under pressure, the manipulator loses their script. They don't know how to proceed. They can't provoke you. They can't read you. They start to question themselves instead of you, and once they start questioning, their control dissolves. People often mistake this calmness for apathy. They think the emotionally dangerous person doesn't care. But that's not true. They care, just not in the way others expect. Their care is disciplined. It doesn't spill out uncontrolled. They know that emotion without control is weakness. But emotion under control is influence. Imagine two people in an argument. One yells, gestures, gets red in the face. The other remains quiet, listening, eyes steady. Who seems in control? Who seems more powerful? The answer is obvious. The calm one holds the authority because they aren't emotionally moved. The loud one believes they're winning. But in truth, they've already lost, because their emotion revealed everything. The calm one, by concert, hides intention behind stillness. That's the Machiavellian way. Control isn't about suppressing feeling. It's about delaying expression until it serves your purpose. That's the difference between instinct and intelligence. Most people speak, react, or decide instantly. The emotionally dangerous person waits until emotion cools, then acts with precision. That's why their moves seem effortless. They don't waste energy reacting. They conserve it for when it matters. Machiavelli would say that the world belongs to those who can stay unmoved when others panic. Because panic spreads like a virus, but calmness spreads like authority. In times of chaos, the emotionally reactive look for leaders to follow, and those leaders are always the ones who remain calm. Emotional stability signals strength. It tells others that you're not easily broken, and people naturally gravitate towards strength. Most people, however, never reach this level. They cling to emotional expression as proof of honesty, not realizing that unfiltered emotion is also proof of vulnerability. They wear their heart on their sleeve, thinking it's courage, when in truth, it's exposure. And in a world that feeds on emotion, media, politics, relationships, everything, exposure is surrender. To break free from control, you must first recognize the pattern. Notice what triggers you, who triggers you, and why. The moment you can identify it, you can choose not to react. Every time you resist reacting, you weaken the manipulator's hold. It's like cutting the strings one by one until you're no longer a puppet. The power you reclaim through silence and restraint is greater than any display of aggression. The emotionally dangerous person doesn't fight to prove themselves. They don't argue to be understood. They don't explain to earn peace. They know that explanation often fuels control. Instead, they speak when necessary, act when decisive, and stay silent when it gives them power. Their silence is not emptiness, it's pressure. It makes others reveal themselves. When you master this art, people sense it. They stop trying to provoke you. They start respecting you, sometimes even fearing you, because they realize your emotions are not theirs to play with. That's the quiet dominance Machiavelli admired, not the domination of others, but the domination of oneself. Most people live on emotional autopilot. They get angry without purpose, forgive without awareness, love without caution. The emotionally dangerous person chooses when to do all three. That choice is the difference between being free and being controlled. Because when you can choose your emotion, you own your world. And when you can't, someone else owns it for you. And that is why, in every game of power, personal or political, the most controlled mind wins. Not because it's heartless, but because it refuses to be predictable. In a world full of reaction, the one who remains calm is the true danger. Becoming emotionally dangerous isn't about turning your heart to stone or pretending to be something you're not. It's about taking full ownership of your inner world. It's about learning to stand so still, composed, that nothing outside of you can shake what's inside of you. It begins with one small but powerful act: the pause. When something or someone triggers you, your first instinct will always be to react. That instinct is ancient, carved into your nervous system by survival. But in the modern world, reaction is rarely survival. It's surrender. The instant you react, you reveal. You expose what matters to you, what frightens you, what offends you. To become emotionally dangerous, you must interrupt that pattern. You pause. You breathe. You reclaim the space between what happens and how you respond. In that single moment of calm, you are no longer controlled by emotion. You are commanding it. This pause doesn't mean weakness. It's not hesitation. It's power in motion, invisible, but absolute. When you pause, others expect you to explode or explain. When you don't, they become uncertain. They can't predict your move. That uncertainty unnerves them. It shifts the power dynamic instantly, because silence is the most unsettling response in a world addicted to reaction. The next step is learning to observe your emotion instead of being driven by it. Most people are passengers of their feelings. They ride every wave of anger, fear, or desire until they crash. But the emotionally dangerous person is the observer, the one sitting behind the wheel, watching the storm without getting swept into it. When anger rises, they watch it. When sadness creeps in, they name it. When fear appears, they study its shape. They don't suppress emotions. They study them. Observation separates feeling from reaction. It gives you perspective, and perspective is power. Machiavelli would say that the man who can see his emotion without drowning in it is already a ruler. Not of others, but of himself. Because every external conquest begins with inner governance. Before you can influence others, you must learn to influence your own impulses. To observe emotion is to detach from its control, and that detachment is what creates composure. Once you master observation, you begin building the most subtle weapon of all: unpredictability. Let others wonder what you're feeling. Let them question whether you're angry, amused, or indifferent. When people can't read you, they can't control you. Your unreadability becomes a shield. You're calm when they expect anger, quiet when they expect noise, indifferent when they expect reaction. This confusion keeps you one step ahead. Unpredictability doesn't mean playing games. It means controlling what you reveal. Emotional transparency might feel honest, but it gives others your playbook. Emotional mystery keeps them guessing. When they guess, they lose rhythm. When they lose rhythm, you gain control. This is the essence of Machiavellian composure. You let the world project its assumptions onto you while you remain untouched by them. To build this kind of control, practice small habits daily. When triggered, Take 3 deep breaths before speaking. 3 seconds of air can save you from 3 hours of regret. It sounds simple, but it's the foundation of control. Those breaths reset your nervous system, give your brain time to think, and prevent you from surrendering to impulse. Next, choose silence over explanation. When someone tries to provoke you, they're not always seeking truth. They're seeking control. The more you explain yourself, the more material they have to twist your words. Silence removes that weapon. It's not about ignoring, it's about mastering timing. Words spoken in anger are ammunition you hand to others. Words spoken in calm are strategies you use to win. Another habit is setting and enforcing personal boundaries, without apology. The emotionally dangerous person is not available to everyone at every moment. They decide who gets access to their time, energy, and attention. Boundaries are not walls. They are filters. They keep out chaos and allow peace to thrive. When someone crosses a line, you don't react emotionally. You respond with clarity. You say no and you mean it. No guilt, no explanation, just enforcement. That quiet firmness unsettles manipulators because they can't guilt-trip someone who doesn't play the guilt game. As you practice these habits, something begins to change inside you. The noise of the world starts to fade. The emotional bait people throw your way no longer hooks you. You stop needing to prove your worth, and your opinions, or chase validation. Your calmness becomes your armor. Your restraint becomes your language. People start treating you differently, not because you demanded respect, but because you embody it. Now, it's important to understand that being emotionally dangerous isn't about cruelty. It doesn't mean you stop caring or feeling. It means you stop leaking your power. It's not emotional coldness. It's emotional discipline. You still love, but wisely. You still empathize, but with awareness. You still feel pain, but you don't perform it for the world. Self-mastery doesn't kill emotion. It refines it. It channels passion into purpose, instead of chaos. People often confuse detachment with indifference, but they are opposites. Indifference is apathy. Detachment is control. The detached person feels everything, but decides what deserves expression. They understand that not every emotion deserves an audience. Machiavelli would call this prudence, the art of knowing what to show and when to show it. This level of mastery doesn't come overnight. It's a process of rewiring how you respond to life. At first, you'll fail. You'll still react, still defend, still over-explain. But every time you catch yourself, you reclaim a little more control. Over time, those pauses become natural. Your emotional storms pass faster. You begin to notice how little most provocations actually matter, and that realization is freedom. When you reach this state, something profound happens. You become immune to manipulation. Emotional games stop working on you. People can't provoke you into guilt, rage, or fear, because those emotions no longer control your behavior. You can feel them fully without acting on them. That calmness feels dangerous to others, because it strips them of their favorite weapon, your reactivity. Those who used to test you start to tread carefully. They sense the change. They sense that your emotions no longer belong to them. They stop trying to break your frame and start respecting it instead. Because strength when silent is more intimidating than force when loud. When you control your inner world, the outer one bends differently around you. Opportunities appear. Respect grows. People start mirroring your energy. Calm, measured, deliberate. They realize they can't push you, so they begin to approach you with caution, even admiration. You're no longer the one being analyzed. You're the one quietly observing. And that's the transformation Machiavelli pointed toward. Not the dominance of others, but the dominance of the self. The most powerful people in history weren't those who shouted the loudest or struck the hardest. They were the ones who could sit still in a storm, smile through pressure, and make choices guided by reason, not emotion. They didn't lose control because they never gave it away. Becoming emotionally dangerous doesn't change who you are. It reveals who you were always meant to be beneath the noise. It's the return of authority to its rightful place, inside you. It's a calm so deep that the world can rage and you won't flinch. It's a power so quiet that others can feel it without you needing to say a word. The world doesn't fear the loud or the angry. It fears the one who remains calm when everyone else breaks. Because calmness means clarity. Clarity means power. And power, when silent, is the most dangerous of all. Emotion is the battlefield. Every day, people around you are fighting for control of it. Your boss, your friends, even strangers on the internet. They push, provoke, and test you. Not because they truly care about your feelings, but because they know something most people never realize. Emotion is leverage. The moment you react, you give them the upper hand. But when you master your emotions, you take that power back. You become untouchable. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He warned that those who cannot command themselves will always be commanded by others. And that command doesn't come from chains or force. It comes from reaction. Every outburst, every defensive word, every uncontrolled emotion becomes an invisible leash that someone else can pull. The emotionally dangerous man cuts those strings. He doesn't explode when provoked. He doesn't chase after validation. He doesn't explain himself to those who don't deserve the explanation. He chooses calm, not because he's weak, but because calm is where power lives.
Think about it. Every manipulation you've ever faced,
Guilt-tripping, gaslighting, emotional baiting, relied on one thing: your reaction. When you stop reacting, the manipulation dies. When you stop needing approval, control dissolves. When you stop fighting battles that don't matter, you save your strength for the ones that do. This is the art of emotional warfare. To win not by fighting, but by never giving your opponent a target to hit. So what does it mean, truly, to be emotionally dangerous? It means you can walk through chaos and remain composed. It means people can insult you, test you, doubt you, and you still move with width. It means your mind stays sharp, even when the world gets loud. It means that no one, no matter how clever, can predict your next move because your reactions are not automatic anymore. They are deliberate. You decide when to speak, when to stay silent, when to care, and when to walk away. That's what true control looks like. Quiet, deliberate, and terrifying to those who feed on weakness. Machiavelli believed that power belongs to those who can see reality clearly, without the fog of emotion clouding their judgment. And that's exactly what emotional mastery gives you. Clarity. When you're not ruled by anger, you see the game. When you're not blinded by fear, you see the strategy. When you're not carried away by pride, you see the truth. Emotion clouds judgment, but control clears vision. Start today. Don't wait for a perfect moment or a grand test of strength. Practice in the small moments, when someone interrupts you, when someone disrespects you, when something doesn't go your way. Pause, breathe, choose silence over reaction. Each time you do that, you strengthen your grip on your inner world. Each time you hold your frame, you build a kind of quiet power that others will feel but never fully understand. Being emotionally dangerous doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop bleeding emotionally in public. It means you stop handing your power to every person who demands it. It means you understand that self-control isn't suppression. It's self-respect. When you master your emotions, you don't lose empathy. You gain precision. You love smarter, fight wiser, and live freer. Now ask yourself this. How would your life change if you were emotionally dangerous? If no insult could shake you, no manipulation could trap you, no chaos could pull you out of alignment, how different would your decisions be? How powerful would your presence become? because that's what this is really about. Freedom. The freedom to think clearly, act wisely, and move through life without being a puppet to anyone else's strings. So, start your journey toward emotional mastery today. Don't aim to be cold. Aim to be calm. Don't try to be ruthless. Try to be unshakable. Every pause you take, every reaction you restrain, every boundary you enforce, is a step toward becoming someone the world cannot easily control. If you found this message powerful, if it reminded you that true strength begins within, then show your support, like this video. Subscribe to the channel, and join the Psych Algorithm community. Here we study the strategies of minds like Machiavelli. But we don't just study, we apply, because knowledge without practice is just theory, and power without discipline is just noise. So remember, emotion is the battlefield. If you master it, no one can command you. Your calm is your weapon, your restraint is your armor, and your silence is your strategy. This is Psych Algorithm, where we decode power, control, and the psychology behind every move. Stay sharp, stay unreadable, and never let anyone play your emotions like a game.